Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to really get into your sources, pull them apart, and find those key insights.
That's right.
Today we've got a couple of narratives that are just incredibly vivid, really challenging. You often hear them told separately, but wow, put them together and they really speak.
Yeah, we're going deep today. These two accounts, they really lay bare some core truths about human nature, and divine intervention, these unseen spiritual conflicts that shape everything. These aren't just old stories. They're packed with allegory, metaphor, lessons that hit home right now in our lives, in a world we see today.
Exactly. Forget the Sunday school version. We're going way beyond that.
Yeah.
We want to look at what these stories tell us about the divine, about humanity, us, about those hidden spiritual struggles.
Right.
And crucially, what can we actually take away from this?
Right.
For our own lives, our thinking, for better or worse, it's not just about what happened way back when, but why it matters to you right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, so where do we start unpacking this?
The fire on the plain. A deep dive into Genesis chapter 19.
Let's dive into the first one, Genesis 19, sometimes called the fire on the plain.
Yeah.
And it throws us right into this city, Sodom, that's just consumed by its own moral rot.
Okay.
But before we get to the really dramatic stuff, we kind of need the backstory, the context. What was this place like in the ancient Near East?
Right, because when you hear Sodom and Gomorrah, you immediately think of, the fire and brimstone, the mob scene. But what was the setup? What kind of society breeds that level of, depravity?
That's the key question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sodom and Gomorrah, they weren't just some random towns. They were famous, known for wealth, for self-indulgence. They were in this really fertile plain, lots of water, so prosperity was almost guaranteed.
Okay. Material wealth.
Yeah, immense wealth.
Yeah.
But, history shows us this again and again. When you have that kind of prosperity without a solid moral compass, without a spiritual anchor, it can easily curdle into something pretty ugly. Imagine having so much, life being so easy, that you kind of forget what need even feels like. And it just becomes about more pleasure, more stuff.
And in that culture, hospitality was a huge deal, right? Like a sacred duty almost, protecting strangers.
Absolutely massive. It wasn't just being polite. It was deeply ingrained. A religious thing even, a divine expectation. And you see Lot, that's Abraham's nephew, he immediately does this. He sees these two men who turn out to be angels, divine messengers.
Right.
And his first instinct is, come into my house, be safe. He gets it. He still holds on to that value.
So his welcome really stands out against what happens next. How bad was the city's behavior?
It shows just how far Sodom had fallen. Lot's actions are like this little flicker of the old moral code in a city that's completely chucked it out.
Okay.
And then comes the mob, the demand. They surround Lot's house yelling, bring them out so we can know them. That word know, yada in Hebrew. It's not just about saying hello.
No, it's got a much heavier connotation.
Oh yeah, it implies intimacy, often forced intimacy, violation, domination. So this demand, it's not just about sex. It's about power, humiliation, absolute contempt for the guests, for Lot, for any kind of law or decency. It's pure spiritual rebellion in action. Total breakdown of dignity.
Wow. And our sources point out it wasn't just this one horrific act, this sexual violence. There was more going on to the surface, wasn't there? Like the prophets later mention other things.
Yes, absolutely critical point.
Yeah.
Ezekiel later on gives us a wider picture. He says Sodom's sin, their iniquity, was pride, gluttony, literally fullness of bread, an abundance of idleness, and completely neglecting the poor and needy.
So pride, excess, laziness, and no compassion. How did those things feed into the moral rot?
Well, fullness of bread and abundance of idleness. Think about it. You got tons of food, tons of free time because the land is so rich, maybe slaves doing the work. What happened?
Bored, complacent, selfish.
Exactly. That ease, that prosperity, it breeds this lack of purpose.
Yeah.
Everything turns inward. It becomes about my comfort, my pleasure. The resources that could have built community or helped others just fuel pride. Look how great we are, and gluttony and this idleness that leaves room for all sorts of destructive thinking.
And neglecting the poor just follows naturally from that self-focus.
Completely. Compassion just withers when your own desires are all that matter.
That connects so strongly today. We have that saying, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. When you have too much ease, maybe too much money, without a strong sense of purpose or responsibility, it can definitely lead down some bad roads. Self-service instead of community service. It's all about me. You see that entitlement sometimes, or just a lack of caring about the bigger picture.
Precisely. And the really chilling part, this wasn't some fringe group causing trouble. The text says all the people from every quarter, young and old. The whole city was in on this mob action.
The whole city. Wow.
Yeah. It shows how society can just normalize absolute wickedness. When everyone agrees something is okay, even something horrific, the culture becomes desensitized.
Yeah.
Right and wrong get decided by the crowd, not by any objective standard. That's a terrifying place for a society to be. Total groupthink, total moral relativism gone wild.
And right in the middle of this nightmare, you've got Lot. He's called righteous elsewhere, but here, wow. His compromise is just staggering. Tell us about that desperate offer he makes.
It's maybe the most disturbing part. Lot goes outside, shuts the door behind him to protect the angels, and then he offers the mob his 2 virgin daughters instead. Do them as you please, basically.
It's unthinkable. How does a righteous man even get there?
It shows how deeply the toxic culture of Sodom had seeped into him. His moral compass is just warped. He's trying to protect his guests, yes, which is hospitality, but the solution he comes up with, it uses the same depraved logic as the mob, that women, even his own daughters, are just property, expendable.
It's a really stark warning, isn't it? That idea you mentioned earlier, pitching your tent towards Sodom first, then slowly getting drawn in.
Exactly. It's the gradual slide. What seems shocking at first, you get used to it. You start making justifications. Your boundaries erode. Before you know it, you're doing things you swore you never would. Just like Lot here. It's that slow desensitization.
And his justification, his logic. It's so twisted. Trying to somehow link offering his daughters for gang rape to God's command to replenish the earth. How does he even...
It's desperate, distorted thinking. He's grasping at straws, trying to find some twisted divine rationale for doing something horrific. Maybe he thought it was the lesser evil. But even a lesser evil born from that kind of compromise is still an abomination. It shows how far gone his thinking was, trying to navigate tier evil on its own terms.
And you can really see the spiritual warfare angle here, can't you? The enemy, Satan, always trying to twist and discredit divine commands, especially that first one about being fruitful, multiplying healthy relationships, anything to mess that up. Fear, bad ideas, societal pressure, like what Lot's facing. His twisted logic almost serves the enemy's purpose by making a mockery of divine design.
Which leads right into the divine intervention. The angels aren't just passive observers here. The mob pushes, tries to break down the door.
Yeah.
And the angels just reach out, yank Lot back inside, and slam the door shut. It's decisive, forceful, active protection, divine authority stepping right in.
And then the blindness, that's pure supernatural power.
Yeah.
Striking the whole mob blind.
A clear display of divine power over sinful chaos. But here's the kicker, the really telling part about human nature. Even blind, what do?
They don't give up.
Nope. They wear themselves out trying to find the door handle.
Yeah.
Still driven by that desire, that lust, even when they're literally blinded by divine intervention.
Yeah, wow. That kind of blows up the argument, oh, if people just saw a miracle, they'd believe, doesn't it?
Completely. It shows that often the human heart wants what it wants, even if confronted by undeniable truth or power. The will to sin, if it's strong enough, can override even miraculous signs. People follow their desires, not necessarily the evidence. It's a sobering look at stubbornness.
Then the angels say something significant. The cry of them is waxed great before the face of the Lord. What's the significance of that cry?
It echoes way back, like the cry of Abel's blood crying out from the ground after Cain killed him. It signifies injustice, victimization. It's not just about people sinning consensually. It's about oppression, abuse. The cry is from the victims within Sodom.
So not everyone was happy with the situation?
Probably not. Even people who initially bought into the culture might have become victims of it. Satan's promises always lead to destruction, right? It consumes everyone eventually. That cry represents the pain and suffering caused by the city's wickedness.
And there's that behind-the-scenes element too, isn't there? Abraham praying for the city earlier.
Yes, in the previous chapter, Abraham bargains with God, basically. Will you spare it for 50 righteous, 40, 30, 20, even 10? And God agrees. He'd spare the whole place for just 10 righteous people.
So judgment was held back.
It shows God's incredible patience, his desire for repentance, the power of intercession. Judgment isn't his first resort. But the fire finally falls because, well, there weren't even 10. Nobody responded to that offered grace. The wickedness was too complete. Even divine patience has its limits when repentance is utterly rejected.
So Lot and his family are pulled out. And then comes that command. Flee, don't look back, don't stop anywhere on the plain, get to the mountains.
Crystal clear instructions. Escape for your life.
But Lot's wife, She looks back. What's going on there? It wasn't just curiosity, was it?
No, the sense you get from the text and tradition is much deeper than that. It wasn't a quick, ooh, what's happening, Clay.
Yes.
It seems to represent a longing, a deep attachment in her heart to the life she was leaving, the comforts, the possessions, maybe even the familiar sins of Sodom.
Her heart was still there.
Seems like it. Her feet were moving away, but her heart was looking back, ready to return, almost regretting the escape. It's that divided loyalty. You can't flee judgment while secretly wanting to go back to what's being judged.
And boom, pillar of salt. It's such a stark image, a monument to what? Divided loyalty, regret.
All of that. It's a powerful metaphor. Salt preserves, but here it signifies irreversible judgment, being frozen in that backward look, that attachment to the condemned world, a cautionary symbol for all time.
And the practical takeaway, wow, you can get out of danger, but that doesn't mean the danger has gotten out of you. That really hits hard.
Doesn't it? It stresses how important it is to fully commit to God's path. Leave the past behind, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Cut the ties. That's why Jesus specifically says, remember Lot's wife. He knew he'd struggle with this. True deliverance needs a change of heart, not just geography.
Okay, so they escape Sodom, but the drama isn't quite over for Lot. He hesitates again, right? Even after being saved.
Yeah, it's incredible. The angels say, go to the mountains. And Lot says basically, oh no, please not the mountains. I'm afraid something bad will happen to me there. Let me go to that tiny town over there, Zoar.
He's making up his own fears after seeing angels strike people blind and cities burn.
It's a very human thing, isn't it? Ignoring clear divine guidance because of our own imagined fears, we create our own monsters. Instead of trusting the one who just saved him, he negotiates.
And God lets him. He gets to go to Zoar.
Yes, God shows mercy again. He grants the request for Zoar. It shows God will sometimes allow us our detours, even if his plan A was better. We might end up where he wanted eventually, but we took the long, harder way round.
And there's that interesting line from the angel, I cannot do anything until you get there to Zoar. What's that about?
It's a glimpse into God's holiness, his justice. His very nature is like a consuming fire to sin and imperfection. Judgment couldn't fall while the righteous, even a flawed, righteous man like Lot, was still technically in the blast zone. He had to be removed first. God's perfection requires separation before judgment.
Okay, so Lot makes it to Zoar, but then he leaves and ends up in a cave. What happened there?
Fear again. He becomes afraid to stay in Zoar, even though God allowed him to go there. So he takes his 2 daughters and goes to live in isolation in a mountain cave. Out of the frying pan, into the cave.
And that's where the incest happens. The daughter's logic is just chilling. Dad's old. There's no other men left on earth. How could they think that?
Fear and isolation. It's a toxic combination. They genuinely seem to believe they're the last people, that the whole world was destroyed like Sodom. Their fear creates this completely distorted reality, blocking common sense, blocking morality. Living in that cave, cut off, their thinking just spirals.
And the wine plays a part too, getting Lot drunk first. That echoes Noah's story, doesn't it?
It does. Intoxication leading to lowered inhibitions, loss of judgment, and tragic, morally reprehensible actions. Alcohol acts as a facilitator for the terrible decision they'd already cooked up in their fear and isolation. It's a recurring warning in these texts about losing control.
And the result, the births of Moab and Ben-Ami.
The ancestors, the Moabites and the Ammonites. And if you know the later history, these 2 nations become persistent, perpetual enemies of Israel, God's chosen people.
So the consequences of Lot's compromise, his fear, his family's descent, it echoes down the generations.
Absolutely. It's a stark illustration of how sin and compromise don't just affect us, they create legacies. You could say Sodom never really left Lot's family, spiritually speaking. The fear, the twisted logic, the moral failure, it gets passed on. It's the tragic result of not fully trusting God, a wasted opportunity for a blessed lineage.
And practically speaking, the text just lays it all out there, no sugarcoating.
Not at all. These accounts are raw, they're real. They show humanity in all its complexity, its ugliness sometimes. It's a reminder that God sees it all. He knows our messes, our struggles, our bizarre choices under pressure. It's not just history, it's a mirror and a warning about where compromise and fear can lead generation after generation.
Wow. Okay, that first narrative is heavy. So much to unpack there. Now let's pivot. We move to Genesis chapter 20, which you've called the repetition of fear and divine restraint. And it involves Abraham, the great patriarch of faith, doing something familiar.
Yeah, familiar in a bad way, unfortunately. Here we go again. Abraham is in a new place, Gerar, and he tells the local king, Abimelech, that Sarah, his wife, is actually his sister.
Didn't he pull that exact same stunt back in Egypt?
He did. Chapter 12 is this recurring sin, this pattern he falls back into. It really highlights how even people of great faith can struggle with ingrained habits, ingrained fears. He defaults to this human scheme, this deception, instead of just trusting God to protect him and Sarah.
What was his reasoning this time? Why the lie?
His justification, when confronted later, is basically, I looked around and figured this was a godless place and thought, they'll definitely want my beautiful wife and they'll kill me to get her.
So fear again. Fear of man over trust in God.
Exactly. Even after everything he'd seen God do. He lets his perception of the place godless dictate his actions. He believes a lie about the potential danger and acts on that fear rather than on God's proven faithfulness.
And that's so relevant for us, isn't it? The danger of default patterns. We all have them.
Oh, absolutely.
Those old ways of coping, those sins we thought we'd kicked. When we feel vulnerable, scared, uncertain, bam. It's so easy to fall back on the old script, the old self-preservation tactic, even when we know better intellectually. Spiritual growth isn't linear, is it?
Not at all. It's a constant battle against those old patterns. And Satan, the adversary, you can just see his fingerprints here.
How so?
Well, Abraham's fear, his self-preservation, it leads him to endanger Sarah. And Sarah's not just any woman. She's the one God promised would bear the child of the covenant, Isaac. The lineage of the Messiah depends on her.
So putting her at risk like that, it's actually cooperating with a potential threat to God's whole plan.
Unknowingly, yes. The enemy would love nothing more than to disrupt that promised line. Abraham's fear opens a door for that threat.
It's like you said, the enemy is like a fisherman.
A skilled one. He doesn't know the future, but he knows us. He knows our weaknesses. Greed, pride, fear. Self-sufficiency, that I don't need anybody attitude. He knows exactly what bait to use for each person. For Abraham, clearly, fear leading to deception was a weak spot. He's been studying humanity a long time.
But what's amazing here is Abimelech, the king. He's not an Israelite, he's a Philistine king, someone Abraham assumed was godless. But how does he react?
With surprising integrity. He's genuinely shocked and appalled when God comes to him in a dream and tells him, you're as good as dead because the woman you took is married. Abimelech's response is basically, wait, Lord, I did this in innocence. She said she was his sister. Would you destroy an innocent nation? He actually sounds quite righteous.
A righteous pagan, almost. That really challenges assumptions, doesn't it?
Completely. It shatters that prejudice that says only people within our group, our faith, can have morals or hear from God. God speaks directly to Abimelech in a dream, warns him, reviews the truth. It shows God's sovereignty. He works how and through whom he chooses. And yeah, it foreshadows that righteousness isn't confined to just one ethnic or religious group.
And then comes maybe the most mind-blowing line in the whole chapter, God's response to Abimelech.
This is where we see the unseen hand, the divine restraint. God says to Abimelech, yes, I know you did this with a clear conscience, so I also withheld you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not let you touch her.
Wow, God actively stopped him. Physically, spiritually.
It seems so. It's this incredible glimpse behind the curtain. God supernaturally intervened to prevent Abimelech from consummating the marriage, from touching Sarah, because doing so would have been a sin against God himself, and it would have defiled the promised mother of Isaac. God physically restrained him to protect his own covenant purpose.
That is huge. It puts Abraham's failure in perspective.
Absolutely. This chapter isn't really about Abraham being great. It's about God being faithful. His promise, his covenant, doesn't stand or fall based on Abraham's perfection. Thank goodness. God protects his plan even when his chosen people are making a mess of things. It's all grace and mercy.
And the spiritual battle, God just steps in and shuts down the enemy's potential victory right there. Stop the defilement. Protect the lineage.
Exactly. Protect the womb that would carry the promised seed. Divine providence, overruling human folly and demonic strategy. God is always working, often unseen, to keep his plan on track.
And then God tells Abimelech to restore Sarah to Abraham, calling Abraham a prophet who will pray for him. What's the significance of that?
It shows the power of intercession, even through a flawed person like Abraham. Abimelech and his household had apparently been struck with infertility. The women couldn't bear children as a direct consequence, a divine warning. God says Abraham's prayer is what will bring healing. And Abraham prays, and they are healed. It demonstrates that prayer really does influence things. It can reverse judgment, bring restoration, and typologically, it points forward.
How so?
Abraham acting as that prophet, that intercessor, bringing healing. It's a picture, a type of Jesus. Jesus is the ultimate prophet, the ultimate intercessor, standing in the gap, praying for us, bringing healing and reconciliation through his sacrifice and ongoing mediation.
That's a powerful connection, and what assurance this gives us, practically speaking. Knowing that God steps in, sometimes without us even realizing it, defending us, protecting his purposes in our lives, even when our own choices put us or his plans at risk. It's like he's fighting battles for us we don't even know are happening.
Exactly, like that parent seeing the snake near the child and just instantly removing the threat. God protects his own, his covenant, his promises. Sometimes that means restraining others. Sometimes it means redirecting us. Sometimes, like with Sodom, it means destroying the threat. But he is actively involved outright.
Wow. What a deep dive that was. Going through those two narratives side by side, from the fire and judgment in Sodom to that quiet, almost hidden intervention in Gerar, it's so clear these ancient texts are anything but dusty.
Not at all. They're pulsing with relevance. They remind us, that God's holiness isn't something abstract. It demands a response from us. That compromise, seeming small compromises, can have huge, devastating consequences.
Yeah.
And that one backward glance, that divided heart, it can literally define your whole story.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that incredible picture of God's relentless mercy, his absolute commitment to his promises, even when we fail, even when we repeat the same mistakes, like Abraham.
So thinking about all this, what does it mean for you listening right now? It really pushes us to ask hard questions, doesn't it? Like, how close have I pitched my tent to things God has clearly rejected? Am I relying on my own clever plans, my own scams to get by? Or am I actually trusting God protection his way? Where's fear driving my decisions?
Because that spiritual battle is real. It's happening all around us, mostly unseen. But the good news, the amazing news from these stories, is that God is in it. He's restraining evil, he's revealing truth, often in unexpected ways, and he is actively protecting his people. We're not alone in this.
So the question isn't really if consequences come for sin and compromise. Sodom makes that pretty clear. The question is, where will we be found? Will we be like Lot's wife, lingering, looking back, attached to what needs to be left behind?
Yeah.
Or will we be running forward, maybe imperfectly like Abraham, but ultimately trusting, embracing God's path fully, and receiving the full measure of his grace and protection?
May we all be found among those who choose to run forward, learning from the past but not lingering there, and trusting deeply that God's mercy truly does toll faster than judgment falls.